Spiritually, narcissists are bankrupt. You're dealing with someone that abandoned their light. And in abandoning their light, they lost their souls. Narcissists abandon themselves. And who are we? We are light. Light beings. We are source. We're source energy. But narcissists are not connected to source. That's the disorder. Narcissists don't have a self. And I know that very well may be very difficult to grasp because it doesn't make sense, and it's not supposed to make sense, because what we actually talk about, people, on this channel is insanity. Functional insanity, but insanity nonetheless. This is because pathological narcissists have psycho-spiritual arrested development. They are stuck at the bottom of the consciousness ladder, unable to ascend. So they're running through a pathological cycle. And this is what you may refer to as the narcissistic abuse cycle. That starts off with an idealization or a love bomb. Then it's a devalue. Then it's a discard. Then it's a hoover to get back into the cycle again and again and again. And pathological narcissists are stuck in this cycle because they abandoned themselves. That is the first thing that I introduced in this video. Narcissists abandon themselves. They abandon their light. They abandon source. They abandon source energy. The light stepped out. And then essentially darkness stepped in. Someone that doesn't have a self cannot self-reflect. And if someone cannot self-reflect, they cannot grow. And this is why pathological narcissism is regressive. It gets worse with time. And this is why oftentimes on the channel you hear me state that they age like milk. They don't age like wine. They don't get better with time. So you will see where if you get entangled with a pathological narcissist, well, that relationship is bound to go down. Just like the Titanic, it must sink. It must sink. It has to sink because it is going down. It has to go down. If someone doesn't have a self and they cannot self-reflect, and if they cannot self-reflect, they cannot grow. So you cannot grow with them. You cannot grow with destructive energy. You grow with constructive energy. And the disorder, the dis-ease, the arrested development, the unripened soul, the underdeveloped soul that you are dealing with abandoned the captain of the ship. The driver is in the back seat. Nobody's really home with a narcissist. Lights are on, but nobody's really home because they abandoned their light. They don't have enough fuel spiritually. They're running on, let's say, 5% when your phone needs to be plugged in and it's in reservation mode. That's the abandoned self that you can't really get to, because when you are Talking to a narcissist, people, I truly want you to understand that what you're talking to is an ego. What you're talking to is an ego. What you fell in love with was an ego. It is an ego. What is an ego? An ego is a mind-made construct. An ego is a mind-made construct. It is the figment of somebody's imagination. That is why you had an ego death, and that is why I had an ego death, and that is why you're listening to this audio. That is why you're on this channel. Because you had a spiritual awakening. And to have a spiritual awakening, you must have an ego death. You see, you must experience the dark night of the soul. People are getting to some very, very deep stuff into this video. In order for you to be listening to this audio or watching this video, you had to have experienced the dark night of the soul and ego death to spiritually awaken. But the problem is, pathological narcissists cannot spiritually awaken because they abandon spirit, they abandon source. And they attached to their ego, they identified with the ego. They will not let go of the ego. Smeagol wants the ring. Narcissists want the ego. Narcissus is obsessed with the reflection in the pond, the ego, the attachment to the external, that which is outside of spirit, the false self. That's the disorder. That's the disorder. Narcissists believe they are their ego, so they cannot have an ego death. So they will not spiritually awaken, so they are permanently asleep. That's the disorder. No self, no self-reflection. A false self, only projection. So people, I sincerely hope you understand why narcissists must blame you. They have to blame you. They have to gaslight you. They have to project. Projection is all they have to give. They cannot self-reflect because they abandoned their spirit. They dissociated. They checked out and they didn't check back in. They are not here. They're in la la land. They are in ego land. They believe that they are their ego. They believe that they are their mind. And if someone believes that they are their mind, they are losing their minds. That's why it's a mental illness. That's why it's a personality disorder. Instead of connecting to spirit, they connected to their ego, a mind-made construct, a false reality. Hence, they created a false self. And the false self is what we were interacting with. That is why we bought into the false reality, the delusion of a mentally ill person, of an unripened soul, a lost soul believing that they are the mind. Narcissists believe that they are their ego. That's the disorder. You are not your ego. You have an ego. You cannot be your mind, because if you are the mind, then who is controlling the mind? Because the mind is a tool. You use the mind to make decisions. You use the mind to think. You use the mind to brainstorm. You use the mind to recollect. But narcissists believe that they are the ego. They believe that they are the mind. They believe that they are the egoic construct. So they cannot have an ego death. Forever asleep. That's the disorder. If you fell in love with a pathological narcissist, a borderline, a histrionic, these sociopathic individuals, psychopathic individuals that don't have a self, that dissociated, you were talking to an ego, a reflection of you. They idealized you. You like apples, the narcissist like apples. You like oranges, the narcissist like oranges. Narcissist likes anything you like. They like. Anything you like. They like. Yeah, that's the disorder.
What kind of music do you like?
Whatever kind of music you like.
Look, I know what I like. And I know you know what I like because you were trained to know what I like. But I would like to know what you like. For instance, do you have a favorite food?
Yes.
Good! What is your favorite food?
Whatever food you like.
It is mirroring you. The ego, a mirror of you. That's a disorder. And this is why you cannot truly get to know a pathological narcissist. They don't exist. They abandon themselves. The self didn't develop. What developed was a false self, the ego. So you're dealing with someone that is wired backwards. They're wired to regress. Because the ego cannot self-reflect, and the ego needs fuel, the ego needs supply, the ego needs attention, and there's no amount of attention or validation or your reflection that you can give to a narcissist to satiate them. They'll never be full because the ego cannot be satiated. That's the disorder. The ego was not developed for that. The ego was not developed to be a self. We are not our minds. We have a mind. So while the ego is a part of us, we know that we are not the ego. But again, narcissists believe that they are their ego. And when you truly understand that, then you understand that people operate at varying levels of consciousness. 8 billion people on this planet, so 8 billion levels of consciousness. Hence, in order to find blossoming and blooming relationships, the people that you're looking for must be in the 4th dimension or higher. They must have done the groundwork on the lower chakras, on those lower energies, those lower energy centers, to have ascended. So they're in a more positive state of vibration, so that you can have a healthy relationship with them. You can't get that from a pathological narcissist. They're stuck at the bottom of the consciousness ladder. They're stuck in negativity. That is why they're always in a horrible mood. They essentially have a mood disorder, which is encapsulated in the pathological personality disorder that they have. The entire personality is corrupt. Dark souls, underdeveloped souls, missing elements. So don't expect pathological narcissists to act like sane, sentient adults. They didn't develop to adulthood. They have arrested development. So they don't have their higher faculties. They didn't develop. They have too much groundwork to do. They're based in shame and they're unable to move past their pride. They have lower chakra work to do, before they would be able to ascend. And this is what we call baggage. Too much negative baggage. Carrying around too much negative energy. Too much trauma must be healed. But narcissists believe that they're perfect because they have dysfunctional pride. So they have grandiosity, which means that they believe that they're perfect and perfect people do not need to change. Hence, you will see where pride will come right before the fall, and pathological narcissists will fall right back down to shame, to go through another shame pride cycle. That's the disorder. That's the disorder. When a narcissist collapses, when they get up, they grab the mask and they put it right back onto their face. They develop another mask and another mask and another mask and another mask, and that's the disorder. There's no self there to self-reflect. Today, what you're dealing with is an ego. The true self got abandoned in their childhood years. And people, that is pathological narcissism in a nutshell. That is unconsciousness in a nutshell. That is the cluster B in a nutshell. Lost souls. This is why clinicians call it a personality disorder. They're underdeveloped souls. Alright? So in today's video, I wanted to delve deeper into some of the spiritual aspects of what you were dealing with so that you can truly forgive yourself. These people had soul issues, all right? They had mental issues, emotional issues, and spiritual issues long before you came into the picture. So forgive yourself, because you cannot grow with a pathological narcissist. They're already regressing. They were already regressing. Way before you, they were regressing. They get worse. And this is why that relationship had to go down. Because you cannot grow with destructive energy. So again, in order to heal, ensure that you're finding emotionally healthy people. Spiritually healthy people. All right, mentally healthy people, people that are working on themselves. Not that they're perfect, not that you are perfect, but people that are working on their true self, their true spiritual essence. And that's how you can grow and heal and have fruitful relationships where you can age with grace, where you can age like wine, where you can both get better with time. You'll find those people in the 4D or higher kind people. All right. That is the not so quick message for today's video, but thank you always for your continued support. Ensure that you are liking these videos. Ensure that you are subscribed for more empowering content. If you have any questions or feedback, go ahead and leave that down below in the comment section. Sheikah is the name. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.